besties, Clark here. Alana is totally in this episode, but we forgot that we have intro music now, and we didn't really film a proper intro where we can use our intro music. So, hi besties, I'm Clark. I'm Alana, and this is Bestie Energy. Besties, I'm Clark.
Welcome back. I'm Alana.
And this is the third episode of the Bestie Energy podcast.
If you haven't watched episode 1 and 2, I don't know what you're doing here.
Yeah, exactly. We have 2 episodes. So let's give you guys, we're brand new. Let's give you guys a little history real quick. Bestie Energy is all about being bestie. It's like uplifting stories.
Yeah, exactly. Good
Sort
vibes,
of.
kind of like anti-true crime.
Yeah.
More of telling positive stories about people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like instead of focusing on like terrible negative things that have happened and telling those stories, we're telling stories of like cool people or cool situations. So it may get rough somewhere in the middle, but like the stories themselves are good.
We'll get there.
I think. I don't know. I'm gesturing a lot here. But yeah, before we get started, and we're going to do this every time, so if y'all are annoyed with it, get over it. We do have a Patreon. So if you want our episodes early and ad-free, go on over to our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Bestie Rebellion. And there's a lot of good stuff over there. You also get a bonus episode every single month and a private live with me and Alana where you get to ask us anything.
We just did our first bonus episode 2 weeks ago, I want to say, or last week.
It was just released this last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Make sure you check that one out too. You got to add Patreon first and then check it out. So.
Yeah, and you get to submit your own stories for us to
No, I really want to hear what you guys have to say. There's a lot of cool stories that are unheard of. So
yeah, exactly. So come check us out over there. It's cool. We're also on YouTube, sort of. I haven't uploaded I haven't told Alana this, but I haven't uploaded our first YouTube video because I can't get it to work.
We're not on YouTube yet.
We're not on YouTube yet. Hopefully, after we're done with this, we'll be on YouTube.
It's in the progress.
It's in progress. So today we have a story from Alana that she's going to tell me. I have not heard it.
So my last story was the first episode of the Bestie Energy podcast. That one was quite a bit longer. I got a lot of detail on that one. There was so much information out there. This one takes place in the 13th century. So we're going quite a bit further back. There's a lot less information. So disclaimer just right at the beginning. Please forgive me if there's things that are pronounced wrong, misrepresented. Do your own research. There's lots of sources out there. I just want to say that.
She did do her research, though.
I did do my research.
She did what she could. It's just, there's always more knowledge.
So to set the scene, we're going to be going back to Mongolia in the 13th century. Yeah.
So where is that? Is that like modern day China?
It's above. So Mongolia still exists, but it's above China.
Wow, I'm an idiot. I knew that Mongolia existed. I did.
Yes.
I swear I did.
I'm like, it's still there.
Oh, it's still there, Clark. To our Mongolian listeners, I'm just going to get ahead of this and submit my apology now.
Oh
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I knew Mongolia was a thing. Alana can attest, I got 20 minutes of sleep last night, so yeah. I'm so sorry.
So this is where we're going to be taking place in at this time period. This is actually after Genghis Khan, too. We all know Genghis Khan, right?
We do. So he's not the story, right?
He is not the story.
He is not Bestie Energy.
No. We're actually going to be talking about his descendants.
Okay. And he had a lot of those.
He did, yeah. Because we see after his death that we see a lot of his descendants kind of try to take over power. And there's a lot of fighting between them trying to take over.
That makes sense. So there's like a power vacuum.
Yeah.
When a massive leader dies. Because it was the same thing after like Alexander the Great died. This massive territory that he ran was being divided up among all his generals because he didn't have offspring, I don't think.
Well, and Genghis Khan had a lot of offspring.
He did.
They had a lot of offspring. So.
I think something like 1/3 of modern Asia is descended from Genghis Khan.
Really?
I think.
I didn't know that.
I could completely, totally be incorrect, but I feel like I've heard that.
That's a lot. Yeah. So he had a lot of kids. His kids had a lot of kids. So we're actually going to be talking about his great-granddaughter mostly, who grew up with 14 brothers. So
14 brothers.
Yeah, that can kind of show you.
Oh.
Yeah.
We had one, and we love our one.
I love my one brother.
Well, we love our one. 14. So brother, if you're out there, we love you. However, one is good.
One is good. I'm like, can you imagine having 13 more?
I could deal with 2.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think 14.
Nobody was messing with her, too.
Did she have any sisters?
No. Just her and 14 brothers.
Can you imagine trying to date? With 14
well,
brothers?
We're going to get into that a little bit, too.
Oh, we are?
She is quite a character, so we're going to get into why she necessarily didn't want to date and everything like that. So,
well, I mean, I imagine at that time period, too, that, like, dating wasn't really a thing.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm hijacking the story. Go on.
At this time period, too, I just want to bring up the relevance of horses. Horses were seen as, like, wealth at that time. And,
of course.
I mean, even today, like, people still have horses out there. And at the time, like, you were lucky to have, like, 1 or 2 horses, and that would kind of show, like, your family's wealth. But if you had, like, hundreds of horses or, like, this huge herd of horses, that would just show, like, how wealthy you were, you know? So the horses were very...
Well, because I think Genghis Khan, like, his whole conquest and everything was based on horses.
Yeah.
Because, like,
he was, like, the first one to use...
Because isn't that guy, the Khal or whatever, like, Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones, the guy with all the horses?
I've never watched Game of Thrones. You know this.
I did not know that, actually.
You know this. You've been trying to get me to watch Game of Thrones for so long, and I'm like, no.
I'm upset right now.
Well,
but I feel like...
should watch it, but...
So y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that, like, the Khal and, like, the Khaleesi's, all of that were, like, based off of, like, Genghis Khan.
Okay.
And they were, like, a horse people.
Well, it's interesting because, yeah, no, there's so many different versions that kind of, like, spun off from this story, not just from who I'm going to be talking about, but Genghis Khan and his descendants and his family. There's a lot of different stories and versions of it. So,
well, I'm excited. Let's hear about his great-granddaughter.
So his great-granddaughter, there's several different pronunciations that I found. Again, please let me know in the comments if there's something that you've heard that I'm not mentioning. From the most part, what I've heard is Khutulun as her... Khutulun as the most common pronunciation. I've also heard Khutulun and Khutulun.
Khutulun?
Yeah. So the most common I've heard is Khutulun, so that's what I'm going to be referring to her as. But she did have other nicknames like Ayurug. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that one right. Do you want to give that a try?
I feel like the AI is pronounced I.
Ayurug.
Ayurug.
But all of her nicknames that she had all meant moonlight. So
moonlight.
Pretty nicknames, yeah. So grew up with 14 brothers, like I said. And her dad was Khutulun Khan. Khutulun Khan.
That's a cool name, though.
Right?
That's a good alliteration right there. Khutulun Khan.
Khutulun Khan.
I want to be named Khutulun Khan. I'm changing my name.
Right? And Khutulun Khan was Genghis Khan's great-grandson. And
I thought you said that Khutulun was his great-granddaughter.
I'm sorry. You're correct. Thank you for correcting me. Khutulun Khan was his grandson, and Khutulun was his great-granddaughter.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, yes, thank you for correcting that. So we all know Genghis Khan was the first Khan of the Mongol Empire. And then after that, like we went over, it was all kind of separated between the descendants. And we see a lot of fighting between their descendants as well.
Gotcha.
We also see at this time period, a lot of, it wasn't, so Khutulun, she was really known for being like a warrior as she grew up. She was a really amazing warrior, and Mongols at this time fought a lot on like with bow and arrows on horseback. So from a young age...
I'm just going to say it. That's badass.
Right? From a young age, it was very common in this time period for kids, like as early as like 2 and 3, to learn how to learn horseback riding.
I'm just saying, I feel like there was a scene in a movie at some point, it might have been Legolas, who like mounted a horse and was like standing on this horse and like firing arrows. I would marry a man on horseback with a bow and arrow. I'm just saying. Anyway,
yes.
Proceed.
So they all, boys and girls, both learned how to do archery and horseback riding. Khutulun was very, very good at both of these. And kids, when they were really young, they had to like protect their pastures too. So they had like sheeps and goats kind of like closer to closer range, and the girls were mostly in charge of protecting them from wolves. Okay. So girls were in charge of, they had their bow and arrows and they were kind of like closer range and they would take care of the wolves and everything. And then boys would be more out with like the cows and the horses, protecting them from wolves.
So this wasn't really a society of like girls being like closed up and not allowed to interact or anything like that. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. For the 13th century, that's interesting.
Right. So yeah, they did have different roles. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, like when it came to fighting, before like it really got down to sword fighting, and I mean at that point men did have like more of an advantage, but before that, when they were still doing horseback riding and like archery, women could really dominate at that.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
we are agile,
right? So from a very young age, she was learning horseback riding, archery, and her dad, who like I said was a Khan at this time, a great Khan, and he started seeing her potential.
Instead of hearing that as like a Khan, like Khan.
Oh no, you did not.
I heard Khan, Con. I was like, oh, her dad.
Something else.
No. Like a con artist.
Yeah. He was a great Khan. He was a con man.
No.
But he started recognizing her potential pretty early on, and her 14 brothers were starting to see like she was the favorite. For sure. They're starting
again to, interesting for the 13th century.
It is, yeah, no, definitely. So she really had more respect given from her father. Like if she had kind of a strategy like on the battlefield, he respected it and he listened to her.
Wow.
So she was almost like an advisor for him in a way.
That's crazy.
Really cool, right?
That's really cool.
Yeah. So not only was she an amazing warrior, so at this time, like I said, they're fighting on horseback with archery. So there's a lot of things that were erased in this history because things weren't recorded. But one of the people that did record her history was Marco Polo, which is pretty cool. He wrote a few things about her.
Okay, so Marco Polo was existing at the same time.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
So he wrote as when she was a warrior, and as like kind of wrote about that, and he described her as almost like a hawk on the battlefields, and that she would go snatch prey like chickens.
Wow.
Yeah. Like she would basically go up. She was taking the reins. Like she would go up on her horse. Yeah. She would go up on her horse to the opponent's side, just grab one of them and like run them back to her side and like throw them to her side, like take care of them.
So she'd just go snatch people? Yes. And she'd just yeet them over into enemy lines? That's vicious.
She took care of people, yeah.
That is vicious.
Literally, Marco Polo was like, she's like a hawk snacking.
Also, you gotta be strong.
Yes.
She
was strong. We're gonna get into that too.
Oh my god. I think I'm in love.
Oh yeah. So that's one of the things that Marco Polo wrote about her. Another thing that he wrote about her was that she was very tall and like built, and she was like a giantess is what he described her as.
You know what's funny? Yeah. So I think I remember reading about like Marco Polo stealing pizza from the Chinese or something like that. I don't quote me on this.
I think I've heard that same thing though. I don't know if it's a rumor or not though.
Yeah, like it was supposedly like a food that they like gave to their army or something like that. But here's the thing. My embarrassment is now higher at being like, oh, it's Mongolia and modern China. China already existed.
Well, and China was divided. You're not dumb though, because it was divided between different like dynasties. It wasn't like China.
No, I know, but I'm just like, jeez,
China was, yeah.
I'm like, was Mongolia China? No. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm normally good with knowing where countries are on the map. I'm just sleepy.
No, that's so funny though that you say that. So that was her as a warrior, as we can kind of get a picture of how she would fight and why her dad had this respect for her. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, he's this great Khan again. And he's like, he's recognizing her potential. He's like, she's got this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But she wasn't only known for this. Like one of the biggest things that she was known for was actually she was an amazing wrestler.
A wrestler?
A wrestler.
Like down in the mud?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
She was a wrestler. And at this time, wrestling like was pretty, I mean, it still is like pretty prominent in Mongolian culture, but I mean,
really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Mongolia, as we have learned.
So, and at the time, I mean, mostly men would fight men. There really was no women wrestling, but she grew up with these 14 brothers and she's like, I like this. I'm good at this. And
okay.
She, to kind of like set the scenery for wrestling too, it wasn't, you know, the way that we have it kind of divided up between like heavyweight and like people who are smaller, and then like kind of divided between weight class and gender and everything. It wasn't like that. It was like you versus you. It didn't matter. It
was like, just go.
Yeah. And mostly, like I said, it was just men fighting, but I mean, different size men. Like they would put a really large size male versus a smaller male to just
I get it because it's entertaining. Like, I get that the way that we do it is fair.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, you guys are both 170 pounds. That makes sense. But I'm not gonna lie. I'd probably pay big money to see, like, a 150-pound guy go up against, I'm gonna make another Game of Thrones reference, but there's this guy on Game of Thrones who plays this guy called the Mountain, and this guy is ridiculously gigantic.
Oh my gosh.
I would pay money to see a tiny guy take him on. Yeah, I think that would. Hey besties, Clark here. I know, ads, ew, but I wanted to plug our Patreon for you guys again. Did you know that if you sign up for our Patreon at www.patreon.com/bestierebellion, you get an extra bonus episode every single month, and you also get every episode of Bestie Energy early and ad-free. We also post bloopers on there from when we film our TikTok videos and when we film our podcast episodes. It's a really good time. And we also do a Zoom meeting live every month with all of our awesome patrons if you want to join. So go head on over there, check it out. It's a good vibe. It's a good time. Thanks, besties. Bye.
Between them, the way that they would wrestle as well is they would just stand like across from each other, grab each other's arms, and they would have to just wrestle each other, like fight each other to the ground, and whoever fell lost, and whoever was still standing won.
Isn't that kind of how sumo works? Like, don't they have to like push them out of the ring
that
or
sounds
something
pretty
like that?
Similar. Yeah.
I don't know
sure
that
how,
for sure, but it sounds like a similar thing.
Yeah. So, but another thing that would end up happening quite a lot is they would end up like whoever would lose would get thrown. It wasn't just like they were getting down to the ground. They were like, whoo, they were thrown. So.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So that was something Khutulun did quite a lot. Yeah. So she got real good at that.
She really just liked to throw people.
She was undefeated.
No.
Yes.
Against all these men.
There was like, they don't know how many men that she wrestled, but I'll tell you how we have this knowledge in a little bit. But we think that it was about 1,000 men.
That she just kicked their asses.
Mm-hmm. So, and I'll tell you why we think that. So, she was this amazing wrestler doing these amazing things. I think at this point she was like in her 20s, you know, getting to maybe 25, closer to 30.
Okay.
And she's still...
I'm 30. Right? I'm not throwing no man out of a ring or anything
like 1,000 different men.
No.
So she's this great warrior, great wrestler. Her parents are kind of like, so they're thinking about like, is she going to get married at any point? like what's
grandkids?
What's your next move? What are you planning to do with your life?
Have you thought about like, that's great, honey, that you're undefeated in battle, but have you thought about popping out a grandkid?
Right? No, seriously. And so at this time she's thinking like the most important thing to her was pretty much like commanding the military. Like she really loved to do that. Mm-hmm. And to get married, she was like, I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. So I'm not getting married. I'm not getting married anytime soon.
Valid, my girl. Valid.
So she told her dad, she's like, I will get married to the first man that can beat me in wrestling.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mom, if you're listening to this, but like, the sexual tension would be off the fucking charts.
That's so funny.
Can you imagine their babies?
Oh, I know.
Oh my God. Okay, sorry. I'm invested. Go on.
So yeah, she's like, that was kind of her loophole. She's like, no man is going to be able to beat me. So
yeah,
she's like, yeah, the first one that can beat me in a wrestling match, I'll marry. And so her dad's like, okay, so they put
they put it out?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
They put it out there. They're like, anybody that can beat my daughter at wrestling will have her hand in marriage. And the bet was like, they weren't just coming to do that. They had to bring 100 horses to bet.
Oh my God. I mean, even in modern times, that is a crap ton of money.
That's a ton of horses. And like I said earlier, it's like you were lucky at this time to have like 1 or 2 horses in your family. That was like the average. So I'm like, these men were
asking for like a prince.
Yes.
That's intense. Dang, her father really did value her.
And the reason that we are like, okay, so she beat 1,000 men at wrestling is because she ended up acquiring 10,000 horses.
Acquiring.
Acquiring.
I'm her big sister, guys. I get to be a
You
jerk.
have to do this. Mongolia. You don't even know where that is.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Fine. Shots fired. All right.
But
so she acquired over 1,000. Oh, that makes
10,000.
10,000.
That's what I'm saying. 1,000 people that she beat. Each of them brought 100, or I'm sorry, 1,000 horses. You're right. 1,000 horses. Yeah, math not there today.
Okay, so she would have like so like if you lost in a wrestling match, you lose your horse.
Yeah, you lose your 100 horses, and you didn't win her, obviously.
Ooh, so wait. Was the ransom 1,000 horses or 100 horses? 100
horses. She
horses.
ended up having 1,000 horses.
10,000, I thought you said.
Let me double check because now I'm
really
the
confused.
math isn't mathing.
Yeah, because if it was 1,000 people and it was 100 horses, that's.
Let me see my notes here.
100,000 horses, actually.
It wouldn't be. It was either 1,000 horses that she ended up having or 10,000. So either way, she wrestled a ton of men and beat them.
And stole their horses. Gotcha.
Which, like I said, like horses were the wealth. So I'm like, she became super wealthy this way too.
I mean, that would make you wealthy now.
Mm-hmm.
Horses are expensive as all get out.
Oh. There were about 1,000 men who tried to fight her for her hand in marriage. So yeah.
Okay, cool.
About 10,000.
Cool. So horses. She was kicking butt.
Yeah, crazy. So as these men were coming, they were pretty confident. They're like, oh, just got to beat a woman in wrestling and then I get her hand in marriage. Seems pretty easy
way to get a wife.
As they started coming in, they were like, oh. They're like, oh, we're all losing our horses today.
And imagine going home as a man and telling your father, okay, you know that 100 horses I took as like a dowry situation, right. Bride price, whatever. So I lost them, and also she kicked my ass.
Yeah, in front of a bunch of people. Because at the time, too, this is like their entertainment. So it's like, oh, you know, she's going to be wrestling all these people, all these men. So all these crowds are gathering around, and they're all like watching and probably laughing.
Probably. And I feel like they wouldn't end up married to anybody else either. I'd feel like other women would be like, oh, you're the one who got your butt beat by a woman.
Right? News probably traveled. So... yeah, so she ended up taking all of them out. Then there was this one prince who showed up.
It was a literal prince.
An actual prince who showed up, and he brought 1,000 horses with him. Just to show, he's like, I got this. He's like, I got the money. He was really confident, like, I'm going to win. And
as a prince would be.
And Khutulun's father is like, okay, he's coming with 1,000 horses. You already got your 10,000 horse, or your your
girl,
10,000
you're rich.
horses.
You're rich. You're good.
Like, just settle down with him. They encouraged her. He encouraged her purposely lose so that you can take his hand in marriage and settle down. And she was like, she actually considered it, but she was like, no, I'm really good at wrestling. Like, I don't want to purposely.
Plus, I got 10,000 horses. What do I need a man for?
She was like, I don't want to purposely lose. Like, if he wants to bargain 1,000 horses, that's on him. Like, so she went to sleep. She's like thinking, what am I going to do tomorrow? Am I going to lose? Am I going to marry him? Am I going to kick his ass? Like, what am I going to do?
And I'm guessing she went with the ass kicking.
So
she sounds like the type of girl that stands on pride and went with the ass kicking.
Yeah. So she shows up, this huge crowd. I mean, if you can expect a crowd gathering for these other men that were coming. I mean, this prince is coming. Everyone's talking about it. He's bringing 1,000 horses. This huge crowd gathers. They're like, what's going to happen? Everybody is like, no, she's going to like throw it so that she can marry him. And she was even thinking she was going to do that. And when she started wrestling him, she was like, nah, I'm going to beat him. I'm going to beat him. So it was actually one of the longest matches, according to some sources. Like, they actually went back and forth for quite a while. And, like, everyone's on edge. Like, her dad is like, come on, like, what are you doing?
If I could time travel to something, I would love to go back and watch this.
Sounds so interesting, right?
I want to see.
So she ended up throwing him. Like, just completely.
She threw a prince!
She was like, yeet, bye.
Girl, no!
She's like, so he was embarrassed.
You don't embarrass a prince,
He was so embarrassed. He left. He was ashamed.
They got armies.
He was so embarrassed, and he just left.
Yeah. Oh my God. Can you imagine? Like, shame on your entire country.
Yes. He vanished. Just completely.
I don't blame him.
Never returned.
Yeah. You know, okay, I'm just going to throw this in here.
Yeah.
But I feel like in history, we see a lot of these, we see a lot of stories where people kind of speculate on whether somebody was secretly a member of the LGBTQ or not.
Right.
And I kind of wonder a little bit.
We're actually going to get into a little bit of that. Not necessarily that aspect of it, but because there weren't sources that were claiming that. Mm-hmm. Because I guess, like, that wasn't really, even though Mongolia was, like, progressive at the time, it wasn't that progressive. So they were
nowhere was that progressive.
No. Not in the 13th century. No. Mm-mm. So they weren't thinking that. But they were thinking other things, which I'll get into
I got you. Well, I was just going to say, and I just want to say, though, I'm not saying that, like, oh, if you're a strong, powerful woman who doesn't want to get married, then you're obviously a lesbian. I'm not saying that.
I know you're not.
Well, and I'm part of the LGBTQ. Like, I'm not saying that at all. I just, sometimes I wonder with some of these historical stories, like when you hear of somebody who didn't want to marry and that kind of thing, even if they had every reason to, I wonder a little bit.
There are times where I'm sure there were people that were too, scared to, or didn't have the ability to say anything about that. So
Exactly.
Yeah. So, this was a victory for her, but it was also kind of a defeat because everyone was like, well, who are you going to marry now? You know what I mean?
Yeah, pretty much like nobody's going to try after that.
No. Yeah. And her parents were pretty disappointed as well. There's not a lot of information about her mom, so that's why I keep bringing up her dad, because I know who her dad is.
I wonder if her mom was alive.
I don't know a lot about her mom.
It's in that time period. Right. And I mean, 15 kids.
Right. No, seriously.
That would take it out of you.
I don't know if it was the same mom, too, for all of them. I'm
just saying, that would take it out of you.
Right? So they were pretty disappointed, like, well, I don't know what we're going to do. And they ended up being like, you can marry who you want when you want, which is also pretty unheard of at that time.
In the 13th century?
Yeah.
No, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm happy for this girl. Like, that's... Yeah. What a life.
They were like, clearly you are feeling very strong about this. If you don't want to marry, you don't have to.
Do you think her father was low-key scared of her?
Well, there were rumors that went around, unfortunately, about that. Yeah, people started to speculate that there was like an incestual relationship between the two of them. Because people were like, well, why doesn't she want to get married? Why does this dad value his daughter way more than his sons? He doesn't even want her to get married. He's okay with her not getting married. So people were like, are you two doing something?
I love how that's what people's brains go to.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh, you don't want to get married, and a father loves his daughter, so they must be doing it.
Yeah. So people were doing that, and so out of respect for him, Khutulun was like, okay, let me start looking for somebody, because she was like, I don't want my father to have his whole reputation like tarnished because of that.
Well, see, she sounds like a good person with like a reasonable head on her shoulders, and like
she had other things to worry about besides being with a man as well.
Well, and also I'm just saying, because like at that time, and often at this time, like, but especially at that time, marriage was very much about resources, right? And she had resources.
Had what she needed.
And like, and even like one of the things back then too was like, you have children because then in your old age they care for you. Yeah. She had enough money to pay for care. Like she doesn't need anything. So it's not surprising at all that she wouldn't bother.
Right, exactly. And there were also sources that said that she like was in love with this other ruler. I don't have a lot of information about it, so I don't want to get too much into it, but basically she like had love for him. But like because of political reasons, she couldn't like be with him. And also there was speculation that he was like a first cousin of hers too, which that
wasn't unusual.
Right. But there were like different reasons that she couldn't be with him, and that's like why. Mm.
I love how they're going around saying that she's committing incest with her dad, but then also saying that she won't be with this guy because he's her cousin.
Right?
Which is it, guys? Which is it?
Like it makes sense. She's like, I won't be with him because he's my first cousin, but my dad.
Like what? Rumor mills.
I don't even know.
Rumor mills are insane.
Hello, ad break, since you guys love these.
Yeah, exactly. So we are actually going to advertise for the amazing, incredible artist who created our cover art for our Patreon. It is the most amazing and wonderful Lee. Go and follow them at Leaning Tower of Pizza on TikTok and Instagram. It's spelled LeeNingTower Pizza. Pizza.
I love their name. Leaning Tower of Pizza. I love that.
Lee is amazing. They sing, they do art, they are an activist who talks about important social issues. Go check them out. And if you would like to advertise with us.
Yes, because wouldn't that be an awesome opportunity?
It would be such a great opportunity for you. I mean, listen to us. We're going to be famous. You want to advertise with us. But reach out to us at bestieenergythepod@gmail.com.
Please, what are you waiting for?
Yeah. And for the rest of you, go join the Patreon, because why are you listening to ads?
I know. We're like, oh, sorry. Do you want to do that one again? That one. Ugh, I didn't know what to say.
No, I thought that was good.
Okay. So I talked about in the beginning how she was this great warrior and would fight alongside her dad. So I didn't really go into like what they were fighting over, but basically her dad's cousin was another Khan who was more like in the eastern area of Asia.
Okay.
And his name was Kublai Khan.
Kublai Khan.
Yeah, one of the more
I'm
famous
loving all
Khans,
the alliterations.
Right? So Kublai Khan, he had more of like a sympathetic way or view towards like Chinese culture.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to find this quote right here that really describes it well. So let's see where it says it. So basically Kublai's ideology was like a little bit more sympathetic toward Chinese culture. And then Kaidu, which was her father, they wanted to protect like traditional Mongolian lifestyle. So that was like the biggest battle between the two of them. So it's kind of interesting because like they're family and then they're like all fighting at the same time. So, so that was like one of the big battles between them and why she ended up like becoming this warrior, and she was trying to protect like their traditional lifestyle as well.
So were they fighting over like territory, or was he just like trying to bring Chinese culture into Mongolia?
I believe it was both. I believe because
okay.
there was the territory around this time changed a lot too, like because he had made his way Kublai like all the way down to like almost to where like modern day Beijing is, I believe.
Wow.
So Mongolia also, like, it was at one point, like, spread when Genghis Khan was in power, like, spread so far across, like, all over into, like, the Middle East and all over China and into Korea. It was insane. Like, they spread. They spread. So there was, I don't mean it like that.
That sounded really weird.
They dominated, okay?
Oh my god, that's not better.
But Kublai Khan was also the founder of the Yuan dynasty.
The what?
The Yuan dynasty.
I think that's pronounced like yuan or like.
I watched several videos.
Yuan, really?
Yuan dynasty, yeah.
Maybe it's just. Why does that look like Juan to me?
It does, but yeah. Yuan.
Okay.
But every video I watched pronounced it Yuan dynasty.
Yuan.
But yeah.
That just does not roll off the tongue. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, he was the founder of the Yuan dynasty as well. So, just a lot of conflict between them. But Kaidu, her father, Khutulun's father, ended up dying, unfortunately, in battle. I'm not too sure, like, which battle this was, but he did end up dying. And after this time, there are some sources that say that his dying wish was to make Khutulun the next Khan, like, past him, which would make sense because...
Make a lot of sense.
Well, and because, like, she was his favorite child, like we've said so many times. But again, like, women were Khans. Like, that wasn't really... They were like, what do you mean? You're trying to make your daughter a Khan?
You really got to watch Game of Thrones, because I feel like this culture is very much because they called them the Khals, Chal.
There you go.
And then there's a character that makes herself the queen after her husband dies. She like makes herself the leader, and she's a Khaleesi. And everybody's like, there's no such thing as like a Khaleesi who like rules.
Oh, wow.
And she's like, well, I'm the first.
It's me. Hello, nice to meet you.
It helps that she has 3 dragons at her beck and call.
Ooh, oh, it's that one.
It's that girl, the blonde.
With the blonde? Yeah. I haven't seen Game of Thrones, but I know who that is.
Just watch it to the end of season 7 and then put it down.
Just stop.
Just accept that you will never know how it ended.
I've heard season 8 just ruins it.
Yeah, don't even watch season 8. It's not even worth the time.
So, after her father died and like he had wanted her to become Khan, like that wasn't really happening. Like her brothers were all trying to like fight for who's going to be Khan, and no, it should be me. No, it should be me. And it seemed like Khutulun was most interested in becoming like chief, commander again of the military. Like that's her biggest interest. It always has been. So she's like, I don't even really care about being Khan, as long as I get to continue like my control over the military and like, continue to like call battle strategy and everything into play. Well, one of her brothers named Oris, he was like one of the ones that was wanting to take over, and she was pretty close with him. And he was like, if I become Khan, I promise I'll make you like the commander of the military. So she was like, I'll support you. So it was pretty much her and him against her 2 other brothers, I believe, one of them named Chapar.
At least it wasn't her and him against the other 13 brothers.
Right? So they were all trying to like fight over power. I believe Oris did become Khan briefly, and she was commander of the military for quite some time. And then they started fighting over power again, and then Japar ended up taking over power. This is kind of where her story doesn't have a lot of information, unfortunately. We're not too sure what happens. We do know she ended up getting married. We're not positive over...
She married somebody.
She did end up getting married. It was after those rumors were going around about, like, her being in an ancestral relationship with her dad.
Oh, God. I wish those rumors had started before the prince.
Right?
Marry the prince!
Oh, he went home with his tail between his legs. So, so she ended up marrying. We're not too sure on the identity of who she married. There's some sources that say it was somebody who was, like, very close to her father, who was, like, almost like a security official for her dad. Some sources say it was somebody who tried to assassinate her dad, which I'm having a harder time to believe.
Highly doubt it.
Doesn't make sense. Maybe. I don't know.
That does not sound like I feel like I know this woman.
Right? So she did end up getting married. She didn't wrestle this man for her hand in marriage, so she still remained undefeated. She's like...
I wonder what that was like. Like, he knew.
Yeah. Oh,
he had to have known that she could kill him.
Right?
That's amazing.
So they ended up moving. I believe she had 2 kids in total after this. There was still...
respectable.
Yeah, there was still, like, quite a bit of fighting and battles going on, and she was 45 when she passed away. There's not a lot of information on how she passed away. There are some belief sources that say, like, it was a hit from her own family that came in, and, like, it was, like, a battle. I hope not, but, I mean, after you hear about how her brothers ended up taking power, but it sounds like she ended up just moving away, like, getting married.
Yeah, it sounds like
she wasn't a threat.
She sounds like she was a really cool person.
Yeah.
Like, she was just kind of like, yeah, I'm about my family and, like, taking care of my family. And then it was like, when it came down to fighting her family, she was just like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Whatever. Well, I mean, a lot of the battles that she fought with her dad were against, like, family, but it was still to protect.
Not her family.
Right.
Though.
And it was still to protect, like, traditional ideology that she believed was right for her country, you know?
It sounds like she really cared about her people.
Very much.
So, like, to me, like, what that kind of sounds like to me, like, if she kind of bowed out of, like, this conflict with her brothers, it sounds to me like she knew that, like, a conflict like that would tear her people apart.
Yeah,
she was just escalate. Like, she sounds like an awesome person. So
Absolutely.
I don't know why they would assassinate her. Like, it sounds like she was just like...
Well, and it could have been that there was a battle that came through that it wasn't even, like, to assassinate her, but it was just a battle where she ended up dying in it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, she ended up dying about 45 years old. And her story ended up, like, briefly becoming, like, erased for a while. Like, a lot of people didn't know about, like, what happened to her, like, who she was even.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, like, Marco Polo is, like, one of the key people who did write about her. And, like, we know she existed because of him.
So he did something good.
But there was a lot of, like, stories that kind of came about because of her story. Like, there were biographies written about Genghis Khan by this French scholar. And then he ended up writing, like, this big, like, long... popular, like, story of, like, tales and stuff, and he actually, like, derived a story from Khutulun's history, but kind of changed it and made her, like, this Turkish daughter named Turnadet, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Okay.
And so yeah, she had
that is a different part of the world,
right? I know. So
it's very far away.
So there were, like, different plays written about her, books, operas, all kinds of things. So
no, I need there to be a historical fiction book about this.
Right?
There's this one writer that I really love, Kate Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
She writes beautiful historical fiction. Like, it's so good. And she does this really cool thing where she gets all of the known historical facts right. And then where there's room for speculation, she weaves these incredible stories of, like, this is her version of what happened. And they're so good. I need her to pick this up and write a book about this.
I had never heard about it before at all. Like, I've never heard about it. And I was going through different stories trying to find a story to talk about. And I was like, wow, she sounds amazing.
No, she sounds incredible. And like, I really love, it's like I said, like, I really love the way, like, she just seemed like a cool person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she, you know, like, she didn't want to get married, whatever. She, you know, she stood on principle with that match with the prince. She's like, no, I'm not going to just throw it.
Yeah,
because
she's like, I'm good at wrestling and I'm not going to just pretend I'm not.
But then she finds out that, like, her wrestling and her, you know, being undefeated and all of this is, like, harming her father.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's just like, oh, you know what? Fine, I'll get married. Like,
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
she just sounds really, really awesome.
She really does. I really enjoyed reading about her and like watching different documentaries about her. I wish there was more information out there because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot that I mean, I talked about that. I'm sure you guys could go and research and be like, there's different versions of the story, there's different accounts and things. So it's like, it was hard to kind of put this together, but generally, like everything that I put together was kind of like the general consensus of what happened.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. No, that sounds really cool. That's a really incredible story.
Yeah. So I'm really happy I got to share that with you guys. I would love to hear your feedback if you know something in the comments that I don't or different pronunciations.
I want
Please
to
be
know if her
kind.
descendants are still alive.
Yes.
That would be cool.
And it's interesting because I did see like a lot of people in the documentaries that I did watch who were commenting who were Mongolian and they were like, I've never heard of this story, which is cool.
Huh.
Yeah. And there's some people that obviously still celebrate her story there today and know about her, but there are a lot that have never even heard her name.
Well, now you have definitely inspired me to do some research into Mongolia because clearly my knowledge is lacking.
I know. I had to like learn quite a bit too. And I feel like there's so much that I don't know. And I'm just like, wow.
That's really neat. That's really, really cool.
So, yeah.
So anyway, guys, yeah, this was a little bit of a shorter episode, but that's, that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. Join our Patreon for sure if you want to hear a bonus episode every month. Join us for some lives. You do. Our bonus episodes are fun. They're also really long. Like I think our last one was an hour and a half.
Yes, so you get lots of feedback or lots of content.
You have no idea how long it took me to upload that.
Oh my gosh.
I had to go to a coffee shop because my internet couldn't take it.
Yeah, the internet here is questionable.
The internet here is questionable. But yeah, no, definitely do that. Thank you guys so much for listening. Our next episode is going to be an episode where I'm telling Alana a story, and it's going to be good.
Yeah, make sure you tune into that, and make sure you comment below what you thought of this, and if you have any feedback.
Yeah, awesome. And follow us on TikTok, Instagram, bestieenergythepod, and yeah, love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.